we want to make the communities that we're in better. Why not?
What's the incentive?
Well, the better, the stronger the community is, the better these other businesses doing. The more people they employ, the more money in the marketplace, and workers in the marketplace, the more they're going to eat out. And we used to joke at the time, we want to make this such a great community and have a situation to where everybody's fully employed, that this is the place that everybody in the world wants to look for performance excellence. Come to Northeast Tennessee. And another thing that you'll notice in Northeast Tennessee, nobody has to have a kitchen at home because everybody eats out 100% of the time.
Can you tell that I'm glowing on the inside right now? Can you feel the radiation?
I can see the joy in your face.
And my mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform, to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. And what you just explained is my vision, man. Like, if we can get restaurant owners across the country to change their community by doing exactly what you just spelled out for us about lifting up the community, we're not in the business of service or creating food. We're in the manufacturing business, and we're in the business of growing people, educating people, lifting up people. When you lift up the people that work for you, the next step, it ripples out to your community, and your community gets better. And there is no better industry position than the restaurant industry to change things. And here's the thing, it has to come from the inside out. We can't point our finger and say somebody has to do something about this. And I think society's guilty of that right now. Somebody has to do something about this. Why isn't the government doing anything about this? Screw you. Do something about it. Take control. Take initiative. Be a part of the change. And what you did, just sharing that information, lifting your community up, is how we're going to do it, man. Like, I'm stoked. This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, CEO of Pal's Sudden Service, Thom Crosby. My man, Thom, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I am absolutely feeling unstoppable today.
I am psyched to be here, man. Honestly, I think when I think of what I'm trying to do in the world today, the change I'm trying to create in the world with Restaurant Unstoppable, and I see what you've done with Pal's Sudden Service and what the greater team has done with Pal's Sudden Service. Like, I want to create more Pal's Sudden Services in the world, and I can't wait to kind of dive into who you are. Actually, I got to give a nod to David McClaskey for making this introduction, for putting you on my radar. I can't wait to dive into who you are and how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
All right. Internally, we're always talking about all of us together as a team is smarter and more capable than any one of us or any few of us.
Yes, man. Yeah, man, that mindset. Dive into why you chose to talk about or to use that quote today.
Because we realize the world is absolutely chock full of brilliant, smart, high-energy people. And if we just open up and let them rise to the occasion and share their energy, share their knowledge, share their inspiration, it's good for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you head over to one of my landing pages, I'm trying to grow this thing called Restaurant Unstoppable Network. And the headliner on the website is choose to go further together. Yeah. And this idea that we are tribal creatures. Mm-hmm. We are meant and we had evolved to serve a role in a tribe in order for that tribe to be better as a collective. And we go so much further together, man. Great way to get this thing started. Yeah. So real quick, help me help the listeners understand, what is Pal's Sudden Service today?
All right. Pal's Sudden Service, we're a drive-thru only restaurant chain. We have 31 locations. There's over 1,300 employees. We have some success factors such as sales per square foot. So in the retail business, you look at how much sales you're doing per square foot on an annual basis. At Pal's, we do over $4,300 per square foot per year in the restaurants.
Wow.
And that's a big number.
I drove through this area, and there's a Pal's almost, it seems like every 2 or 3 miles I see a Pal's, and there is a line wrapped around. There's always somebody in that drive-thru. I've never seen an empty line.
That's the way we try to keep it.
Yeah, man. So $4,300 per square foot per year.
Per year.
And is that per unit?
Per unit.
Wow. That's amazing. 31 units. Can you share total percent profit?
total percent profit slightly over 22%. So it's about 22.3%.
Okay. And what are your prime costs? Cost of goods?
Prime cost, the cost of goods plus labor cost runs at about 50.2%.
Okay. And how's that split up between labor and cost of goods?
It's about 60-40 cost of goods, 40% labor.
Okay. And do you own the properties or are you guys renting?
We own the properties. There's two. We have a location in a strip shopping center that we have to lease. We have a location inside a mall food court.
Okay.
Other than that, we purchase property.
And
of course, the thought behind that is, mortgages go away, leases go up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And how many menu items?
To actually count them, I don't know, but basically we sell hamburgers, hot dogs, a chipped ham and a chipped chicken, fries, colas, milkshakes, tea.
And very simple.
Very simple.
And all drive-thrus.
Well, except for the food court and the one in the strip shopping center.
So that's, except for 2 out of 31.
That's right. The two leased ones are not.
So that's what we're talking today. And I know just from talking to David McClaskey off air and during the conversation I had with him, he's a super fanboy of you guys. I'm becoming a fanboy of you. But before we talk about where you are today, let's kind of pay homage. What's the history, the story of Pal's Sun and Service?
All right. Well, Pal's was started in the 50s. Pal Barger, the name of the company. His parents were here. The site that we're sitting on was a full-service restaurant. Okay. It started out as a barbecue, burgers, and beer, curb service, and then they morphed into a full-service steakhouse. And so Pal was familiar with the restaurant business, didn't want anything to do with it. He wanted to be an accountant.
Smart.
Some of his friends in the early 50s, I think about 1951 or 2, started enlisting in the armies and Air Force. So Pal decided, well, I'm going to do that also during the Korean War era. So he enlisted in the Air Force, was stationed in Austin, Texas for basic training. And where his parents had been in the restaurant business, he understood restaurants, and he saw what at the time was unique. So you had curb service, and you'd bring food out, a lot of times on plates, on trays. Yeah. They would eat. The waiter or waitress would go back out and grab the items up. It wasn't a disposable industry like it is today with all the everything wrapped in paper and stuff. But there's a place called 2J's, like a branding iron.
Okay.
And he just off base, and he saw them, and they were wrapping everything in paper, putting in bags. You took it with you. He thought that this is a great concept. So he went in and introduced himself to the owners and said, my parents in a full-service restaurant business back in Tennessee. I was wondering if you'd share some information with me. And they said, absolutely not. This is top secret. Go away.
Yeah.
We're not interested. So he would set off their property, borrow his field binoculars, and sit in his vehicle and write down everything that was going on. Here's how the building's laid out. Here's what's on the menu. And they had old-timey NCR cash registers, so when you pushed everything in, you had the metal plates come up and gave the total on the back of the machine.
Okay.
And so he would write down, here's how much this sales was. Here's how much that sales was. So he kind of dissected to,
And you can see this all through the binoculars.
All through the binoculars. Okay. And so in early 50s, they called it spying.
Yeah.
Today, you call it benchmarking.
Right. Yeah, market research.
That's right, market research.
So, I mean, one thing that I love about this story is, I think the industry has come a long way. Mm-hmm. When I started this podcast 13, 12 years ago, I was worried about being able to go to people and say, hey, not only do I want to know your secrets, but I want to record your secrets and broadcast it to the world.
Right.
Who's going to give me this information? But I think that the restaurant industry has made a lot of progress in the most recent years, and you can have all the information. It's not knowing how to do it. It's being able to execute how to do it that will make you successful. It's the discipline and the leadership skill. Like, knowing is the first step. Execution is really what will make you successful, and that's the hard part. Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
We agree with it, but we agree with it backwards to how you're saying it.
Say it for me.
We think that you work yourself into a new way of thinking. Well, the way you said it was think yourself into a new way of working. We think that's very, very hard, and it has a low degree of success.
Work yourself into a way of thinking. Dive more into that.
Okay, so kind of how we got to where we're at today we've always strove to be good at what we're doing. And in the 80s, we were good at what we're doing, particularly for our size. We had two stores. We would benchmark against national chains, and we'd say, well, to be a small 2-store, 1-town operation, per unit, we're doing 60 or 65% of what a national chain does in sales. If they're growing, if the published data says they're growing at 7% per year, we're growing at 5%. So we're right on their heels. And we thought that was great. And in wanting to grow, we were always looking at and researching best practices for the service industry. And so we believed the hype that the restaurant business is a service business. And we always struggled with, well, I see what that's saying, but how do I turn that into actions? How do I turn that into processes that's repeatable? It can actually make sense.
How do you turn a service into processes?
How do you turn the service training that was being given? Measure this. This is how you achieve success in the service business. You know, you want to delight your customers. You want to reduce mistakes, those types of things. You want to be not overly friendly, but super friendly with everybody.
Right.
You know, so, well, how do you measure super friendly? You know, and consistently across, you know, a large number of employees and customers. And so we were introduced in the early 1990s to a concept, the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award criteria. And we decided that was a best practice method for assessing where we were at and coming up with a plan to evolve our business model. And so when we went through the criteria, it doesn't give you do this, do that. It's not prescriptive. It's more Socratic in the fact it asks you questions, you give an answer, and then it makes you study, well, is that a good answer? Okay. Or is there a better way to do this? And so we were using the criteria, and we found out that we had just a lot of voids. It would say, how do you do X? And we were like, I don't even know what the question is. I've got nothing, no answer for that.
So it forces you to kind of do a lot of self-reflection.
Okay. So what we decided to do is where we had big black holes and weren't even thinking about behaviors and processes in those areas, that we should do it whether we understood it or not. A lot of, again, large group of brilliant people outside of our organization had created this wonderful criteria. And so we just started putting in behaviors and following the behaviors with no clear understanding at the beginning of why we were doing that, other than that these smart people said we should be doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of a sudden it started clicking with us. And all of a sudden our numbers started getting better.
What were those key behaviors that you started doing?
Well, some of the key behaviors was, one of the big ones was how we were measuring data. One of the things we find in the restaurant industry, still relevant today, is we see that most restaurants react to noise instead of true data.
Okay.
If you talk to a lot of people in the restaurant industry, they're talking about daily sales, weekly sales. All that's noise. And we see them making decisions about, oh, this week's sales down from last week. We've got to change something. This week's sales are better than last week's. We've got to keep on doing what we're doing. And they keep jerking their system around, reacting to noise. So the first thing we learned to do was plot everything on an annualized basis. So we look at data either as a 12-month average or a 12-month total, running totals. Also said that if you have a data set, you need to have a goal, you need to have a baseline, you need to have the actual trend data that's going, and you need to have a best known benchmark data, all plotted on the same graph or chart.
So a best known benchmark would be, say, like what you were looking at with like McDonald's and other.
That's right. So let's say if we was looking at McDonald's
industry average,
and yeah, well, not an average. You're looking for best known.
Okay.
So let's say that we were looking for best known labor cost, and we looked out and let's say that it was Wendy's, and maybe they had 24% total labor. And, you know, others fell in behind that, but were higher since you want a lower labor cost. Well, we would find out who had the best known and plot that. And so we were checking our data, our position in the marketplace against the very best known.
Yeah.
So it's inspirational.
So we can do better.
This
is possible.
This is possible. So there was lots of items along those ways. So some of the others was standardization of processes, making sure we had very intricately detailed process standards in place.
Got it. So measuring data, standardization of processes. What else?
The other one was about education. And so, how well are we educating our people? If we want to thrive, if we want to beat everybody else, we have to train and educate our people better than everybody else.
Got it. So AKA training. Yeah.
AKA training.
Yeah. Let's stop here. Bookmark this because we kind of jumped ahead, right? And I want to make sure that you got your story out. So you kind of told the story of Pal Sudden Service and how it started in 1956,
right?
And the origin story, and to kind of take it from there. Like I think you didn't. Like I think you didn't. We skipped about. From 1956, we went straight to the 80s and 90s, right?
Yeah, we went to the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
So, Pal's in 1956. So he was in the Air Force, and he saw the 2J's operation, decided that was a good idea. Then he got moved from basic training to England. And while he was in England, stationed in England, he had time on his hands. And he was thinking about what he saw at 2J's and started conceptualizing, boy, if I was doing that, here's what I would like to do. And so he started thinking, and I'd like to be efficient at what I was doing. So I was watching everybody in the hamburger business, and they have all these multiple steps you take when you're dressing the hamburger. And if you're doing the most basic hamburger, you put mustard, ketchup, pickles, onions on it. He starts thinking, well, how can I take all those steps and make it into one step? And so he created a hamburger sauce that had all the ingredients already in it. So you just swipe the meat patty in it, put it on a bun, and away you go. And he had all these ideas. And so when he got out of the military, came back, raised some capital, and started the first Pals. And so he started the first Pals, and he had just what we today call a sauce burger. It's a hamburger patty dipped through the hamburger sauce, put on a bun.
Ingredients we talked about.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then he had a friend, or his dad had a friend, who was in the restaurant business in Knoxville, who knew what Pals wanted to do. And he said, well, let me tell you, one of the best sellers that we have in Knoxville is a chipped ham sandwich. And so he told him all, this is what we're doing. This is making a big splash in Knoxville. Well, why don't you add that to your menu? So he had this sauce burger, a chipped ham sandwich, chocolate and vanilla milkshakes, orangeade, and cola.
Pretty small menu.
And a fry.
Yeah.
And that was it. So he started doing that. As he got bigger, he started to do what most people do, which is complicate. This brought me here and made me great. So if I'm great at this, I can be great at anything.
I must be special.
Must be special.
Yeah.
So he added fried chicken and became really successful with fried chicken. And Dutton Wagner, which is a local poultry distributor out of Abington, Virginia, he was one of their biggest customers. He was moving so much fried chicken. But he all of a sudden realized it's getting in the way of me selling hamburgers. And so even though it was being successful, he said, if I want to be in the hamburger business and succeed, I've got to get rid of the fried chicken. So he went back to the simplified menu and continued forward. And so he had been doing that. His parents had the full-service restaurant here on this property called Scobie's. And his father died in about 1970 or 71, and Pal stepped in to take over for his dad. So he got his focus on full service, and he let lapse his focus on the quick service part, the Pal Sudden Service. So he
ahead of his time, he didn't even realize it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he brought me in 1981 to help with the Pals side. So we had 2 locations. And so with my background with corporate McDonald's, a big Wendy's franchisee, corporate Long John Silver's, I just brought standardized practices that I'd been exposed to what Pals was doing at the time.
Okay, so let's share more of your story. So now that we have the understanding the backstory of Pals.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
How did you get into the restaurant industry?
I kind of stepped into the restaurant industry sideways. I lived out in the Bluntville, Tennessee area. And going to high school, I made all my spending money by doing farm work. And then my plan while I was in high school was I want to be a medical doctor. Thought, it'd be a neat thing to do, and it'd be good income. But I needed to pay to go to college. I got a job at McDonald's in this area and decided, well, this is pretty good. And if I'm really going to have to pay for my own college, I probably ought to look at getting into the management ranks. Got into the management side of the restaurant industry and realized that the longer I'm in the restaurant, the better I like it.
Why do you like it?
It's new. It's exciting every day. The customers come up with
New challenges.
New challenges. You have to figure out how to run the operation. You have to overcome situations. So, I've got lunch rush coming up, and the shake machine's gone down, and so it was just something that just energized me to see what was going on, and so decided that I was going to switch gears and do that and be basically a forever McDonald's guy. Had the opportunity, though, a gentleman who had been my supervisor at McDonald's and had retired called me one day and he said, "Tom, do you trust my judgment?" And I said, "Mr. McGinney, I absolutely trust your judgment." He says, "Well, then I'd like you to cover your shift and come to a meeting." And at the time I was working in Johnson City, Tennessee. He said, "I want you to cover your shift. Come to a meeting I'm at in Kingstwo. How long will it take you to get here?" So I thought about it and said, "Well, I think I can get the shift covered and get there within an hour." He said, "That's fine. We'll wait on you." Came to the meeting, and it was he and Pal Barger meeting, and Pal was looking for somebody to run his Pal Sudden Service operation, and John had decided, well, at this stage I'm retired and I want to stay retired, but I've got a gentleman that I think might fit for this for you, Pal. And so I entered the conversation and changed plans. So the original plan was that I would switch gears out of McDonald's into Pal's, help Pal's along. The income potential that was laid out was basically a share of profitability of the store. And I thought that I could make enough money and sidestep the process within McDonald's and raise the money and become a McDonald's franchisee.
So this is your plan.
This is my
profit
plan.
With a profit share. So you guys basically rolled out a pro forma, said with this amount of money, with my cut of profit, I could use this money to invest in a McDonald's franchise.
That's correct.
Got it.
So stepped into that, but then all of a sudden I realized that the freedom I had at Pal's, because Pal was very open. He said, here's what we're doing. Here's where I want to go. Have at it. If you want to change the menu, add things, delete things, change the pricing, change the structure, I'm gonna back you in that.
Okay. So a couple things I'm curious about. What were you doing before? Like, how much time were you in the industry before 81? From when you started working in the industry until you got this opportunity?
Let's see. I went to work for McDonald's in 1974.
Okay. So about 7 years you were working in the industry.
Yeah, about 7 years.
And you were working for Mr. McKinney?
John McGinney, yes.
McGinney. And what do you think, help me understand the relationship you had with Mr. McGinney.
It was basically just a supervisor employee relationship.
Got it.
But he did, performance interviews on everybody in the management side. And I was kind of known for, if you said sales needs to increase 11% this month, I'll give you 11%.
Okay.
reduce labor costs by 20%. I'll reduce your labor costs by 20%. So I kind of had a knack of if you told me the target, I'd figure out and hit your target for you.
And I mean, did he ever tell you? Did he ever communicate to you? You know, you have a career in this. Like, help me understand that mentoring relationship.
Yeah, well, yeah. He said I definitely had a career in McDonald's, and he thought that basically I could become a regional manager or supervisor by the time I was in my mid-30s.
Okay.
And so that was kind of what I was targeting.
Got it. And he went into this meeting with Pal, and the plan was for him to take the responsibility, but then he said, maybe I'm not the one for this. This is a lot of work. But why you? Did he ever say, why did he give you this opportunity?
No, he never did specifically say, but like I said, I just had a good rapport with Mr. McGinney. So when he would come in and look at the operation, and when they would do surprise inspections, if I was running a shift, I never did get a bad mark.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just on target. So I'm pretty much, if you tell me a standard, I'll try to live and die by the standard.
Got it. So you take over this opportunity. The plan is to use the profit that you're going to get, the profit sharing that you're going to get, to invest in your franchisee with McDonald's to buy in as a franchisee. And then you said that it was something about the freedom of working with pals.
So within a corporate brand, here are the standards. Adhere to them.
Right.
You don't have much opportunity to change it. At Pals, I was setting the standards. I was deciding the menu items. I was deciding the pricing. And it was very addictive to have that amount of freedom in what I was doing.
Setting the standards versus meeting the standards.
That's correct.
And it's interesting. So I started this podcast with the pursuit of curiosity, right? Just trying to understand what is it about this industry? Like, how do you become successful? And as I continued talking to people, it became more about like, what is the balance? Like when I first started this industry, I was very much against big corporations, franchises. Like I was like trying to be the antithesis of that, trying to empower the independent restaurant operator to kind of find that balance. What does that look like? As I started talking to more people, I don't think big corporations are necessarily evil. I don't think that there's all big companies are bad companies. I've kind of opened my eyes to that. I think we can learn so much from these big companies, but at the same time, there is something to be said about finding a balance, right? And I'm trying to figure out what is it that is so restrictive or just like, talking to executives behind the scenes that have been a part of these bigger organizations. And it's that what you get with these organizations is security, right? But there's so much restriction on creativity and freedom of something about like chasing and setting the standards versus being forced to meet the standards. Like,
right.
What is going on there with psychology? Like, why do you think one is so much better than the other?
Well, I think human beings want to feel good about themselves and feel inspired and to come up with their own solutions. And I think that the more that you can allow that to occur, the better off you are. And the idea of what you was talking about with being creative, one of the things that I think makes a difference in this situation, and we have applied it to Pals all along, in thinking about my situation, and the fact that I became just highly energized for the fact that I could set the standards and I could bring forth my creativity, and I could say, well, let's see how this works, and learn and adjust from what my decision making was. And so understood that that amount of freedom and creativity was really good. But I also understood that if I got too much out of hand with creativity, I could be wishy-washy and all over the board all the time and setting a different experience for the customer. So what we want is a standardized process model that allows for creativity and for that creativity to be evaluated, captured, standardized, and then rolled out company-wide instead of just, everybody be wild and creative and doing your own wild thing all the time, which would kind of cause chaos within the system.
Well, I think when you think of the word creativity, when most people think of the word creativity, what comes to your mind when I say creativity?
When I hear the word creativity, I think of a wild bohemian artist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You think of art.
Art.
Yeah, you think of art, you think of, I think that's the word, art, right? Or, like if you're at a fine dining restaurant, like, a lot of people call that art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's a molding or paint, like whatever it is, art is what you think of creativity. But creativity is also finding a solution to a problem.
Right.
Like that is also creativity. It's seeing a way to do something that nobody else sees, a way to do it more efficiently.
Efficiently, and actually at PALS, you're going to hear us always, the word that trumps efficiency for us is effectiveness.
Okay.
What we want is effective. We'll worry about efficiency later on, because efficiency is getting the most for the leastest.
So what is effective? How would you define effective?
Effective is having the best sustainable result that's repeatable.
Yeah. And maybe effective isn't just necessarily more efficient, but does it provide more value? And does that value offset the additional work you have to do? Is there more potential there?
That's right. Because, when we analyze the marketplaces as a whole across all business, but particularly within the restaurant business, we see chains and independent business restaurants efficiency themselves to death. So they're always trying to do more for less, bottom line, and all of a sudden they're not relevant anymore. So if you're effective, I think that it makes it easier for you to maintain your relevance. And so if you're relevant, you'll continue into the future. And if you continue into the future, you're set up for the long-term success that you want. I think that's what everybody's really chasing after, is long-term success.
Right. Yeah. So you said something that letting people find their own solutions. So creating standards, but also letting people find their, like, how do you standardize process that allows for creativity? Like, how the heck do you do that? Like
how we do it is we set an upper and a lower control limit. As long as you're between these boundaries, you can bounce around in between those two boundaries anywhere you want to be, because we know that it'll align with our standards and customer expectations. And you can be as creative within those boundaries as you want. Now, if you have an idea that goes outside those boundaries, ask permission. If we give you a design of experiment permission, then we'll have eyeballs working on it, looking at it with you, and we'll capture the knowledge. We'll have it on a small scale test. If it proves out with hard data that it is a better idea, then we'll set a new standard for the company. And we'll move the upper and lower control limits where everybody else can bounce around between in their ability to be creative.
So it's not necessarily don't go outside of these limits, but if you do go outside of these limits, that raises a flag, so we all look at it to make sure we're not missing a better way to do it.
So that we don't have, you may have the most brilliant idea in the world, but if we can't capture it and share it, it's really of no benefit.
Right. And I think that, really, and as you scale as an organization, as you get to the point where you're over 20 locations and you're shooting for 100 locations or 1,000 locations, the truth is, as you get bigger, the perimeters, those banks, those upper and lower limits get tighter and tighter and tighter, because as you get bigger, you have to be. It's more important that you stay consistent as you scale. Right. It gets harder to do. Also, there's more liability. As you get bigger and bigger and bigger, there's more liability. So if you go outside of those standards, if something bad happens, like that company can get sued for a lot of money.
Right.
So like, it's just, there's this, and I think it also stifles creativity. And at the end of the day, what makes humans humans? Like, we are creative creatures. We have to create. It's a part of our like identity. It's a human need to be able to find our role, to be seen and valued for what we contribute beyond flipping the burger.
That's right.
But it's our unique ability that provides solutions.
Yeah. How can I be more and expand myself into helping others? And it's not just about me. I can be creative and thrive as I'm watching other people benefit from my ideas and my efforts.
Yeah. Maybe we come back to this later, because I think this is something that I want to explore. I want to tap into your mind, but I want to get the story out. So you joined in 1981. You're instantly like, oh man, like I would love to have the security of my own franchise with McDonald's, but man, this freedom feels good.
That's correct.
I want to make the standard, not set or meet the standard. I love that saying. So about 10 years goes by of you working with PALS before you discover this, the Malcolm Baldrige standards. What was that 10 years like, that first 10 years?
It was good. It was exciting. We were growing slowly, so we went from 2 locations to 5 locations.
Okay.
We were improving. We were narrowing the gap. So we went from 65% of what a national chain would do on a per unit basis to we were at about 85 or 90%.
And this is not 10 years before approaching the Malcolm Gladwell, not Gladwell, Baldrige.
Baldrige.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big fan of Malcolm Gladwell, the author. So it's going to be hard for me to keep that straight.
But, so we were definitely making improvements. We were working harder, and we felt that we were working harder. And so became aware of the Baldrige criteria, looking at where, there were just voids that we needed to fill in, started filling those in with behaviors that we didn't. The criteria is pointing that we need to be doing something here, and we just weren't doing anything there. Didn't really understand it. So let's do a quick amount of research on, what should we do? What is the best known practice in this area? And let's just put it in place, whether we understand it or not.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the results even continue to get better.
Yeah. Do you know what's going on there on like a scientific level in terms of like the mind and like the neuroscience associated with that?
I do not.
I mean, I love this stuff. And I think, studying the power of habit, routines, and just starting, right? Like, so earlier this year, there were 2 books I listened to like on a repeat for the first 2 months of the year. They're both like 2-hour-long audiobooks. So I was able to get through, like I alternated at the gym every other, and those 2 books were Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect and Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog.
Yeah.
And those 2 books are really just about how to set goals and to meet those goals. And it really starts with little habits. You just have to have faith that if you go through these motions every day, they start to compound.
Right.
And it's just like good habits beget good habits. So you don't need to understand why you're going through the motions, but if you just start going through the motions, they start compounding. And like you're having these, like your mind is literally plastic, and you can develop these new habits and these new routines, and you don't have to necessarily understand why you're doing it. But like if you listen to the people who do these things, and then you can start tracking the data, and you're seeing, oh, wow, when I do these things, the needle starts moving.
Right.
And at first, it's hard. It's painful. I hate doing these things. Why are we doing these things? But over a couple of weeks or a couple of months of doing those things, it just becomes the culture. It just becomes the standard.
That's
you
right.
don't realize you're doing those things. And it's just so powerful. What's going through your mind as I'm sharing this?
Well, that's exactly, the experience that we had. So as we were going through, we were just like, hey, the needle's moving. So when the needle would move, we'd go, I like the fact the needle moved.
Yeah.
So now I'm more energized to do the things I've been doing. And then we start asking questions, is there other things I ought to be doing?
Yeah.
And so when we saw what was happening and how much our results were improving, then we really became committed to the fact that, we really do need to be fully committed to the concept of working our way or behaving our way into a new way of thinking.
Yeah,
and then we understand, and then all of a sudden it kind of starts dawning. I see the needle moving, and now I understand why the needle's moving.
Working our way into say that one more time.
Working our way into a new way of thinking.
Yeah, and it's weird. When I hear you say that, I think there's so much resistance to doing new work. And the amount of energy mental energy that's spent resisting the work, and instead of just start doing it. Just start doing it. Just like learning through, what was that, like the idea of learning through doing the work, or growth through the work?
Yeah. So basically, when you're working your way into a new way of thinking, what happens is as you do the new behavior, it can't be just any old behavior, but it has to be well thought out. What's the best known method basically is what we were chasing after when we would put in the new behaviors. And then all of a sudden your mind just opens up, and after a while you see the needle moving, then you start understanding and realizing, oh, here's why that moves. And once you actually understand why the needle's moving there, you've got that so firmly ingrained, you now at a different plateau to take the next step of working your way into an even higher realm of thinking. And you just keep building upon it and building upon
layers
it.
And layers. Yeah. Yeah. So in 1990s, you had gotten to 5 locations. This is before having the Malcolm Baldrige school of thought being brought to you. What were the challenges getting from 2 to 5 locations?
But basically, the initial one was kind of what most people we think when we talk to other people in the industry talk about today. Finding a location, finding the financing, really worrying about those issues, which we as we worked our way into a new way of thinking, we found was the wrong way to think about it. We absolutely do not think that way anymore. So that was a big challenge. So we were always chasing, well, how am I going to finance this? Where can I actually get a property deal done? Some of those basic things. Today, we never think about that from where we were at that point in time, because what we learned is, no, it's all about, we have to develop people to the point where we've got leaders that's going to leave our organization if we don't build them a store. There's always money. There's always a location. What you have to really be concerned about is creating those world-class leaders, and that's our sole focus on expansion.
Yeah. When did this aha moment hit you guys?
I guess that hit us in about 1996.
Okay.
Our first aha moment, which was big for us. I'd mentioned earlier that, we were chasing things and looking at how do you improve the service business. Restaurants is the service business. And as we were using the Baldrige criteria, a big aha came to us. The biggest aha was that we're not in the service business. We're a manufacturer. We're no different than Ford Motor Company. We bring in raw material, some pre-processed material. We have standardized processes. They build F-150 pickup trucks. We build Big Pals. And there's a standard bill to it. And once we realized that we were manufacturing first and foremost, everything just opened up and was really simple. Boy, we saw how to measure data. We saw how to improve. Everything just cleared up. There was no fogginess about anything that we thought about anymore. The other thing that we learned is the second most important aspect of the business that we're in is we're in the education business. If we cannot teach, train, educate our employees better than everybody else in the marketplace, we will never thrive more than they do.
I love that. I always say we're in the business of growing people.
That's right.
We're not in the service economy. We're not in the experience economy. We're in the growing people economy. We're teaching them how. We're in the business of teaching other people how to be successful. And you mentioned earlier that's about, and that comes down to constant education, teaching people about business, about how to execute and create standards, and to measure all the things that you learn. You pay it forward to the next generation. You lift them up, and you create opportunity for others.
Right.
We're growing people.
Growing people.
Yeah,
that's right.
I love that, and that happened for you in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah. So now those aha moments occurred in 1994.
So manufacturing business, and you said we are in the growing or the educating people. Yeah.
And so we started looking at our processes and making sure that our processes for education, start doing benchmarking against what is the best known methods for transferring information? What is the best known educational methods? And that led us into, one of our core documents for improving how we educate people is through training within industry, which was actually concepts designed to help for the war efforts of World War I and World War II to make sure the industrial base could send all the able-bodied workers off to foreign shores to fight and replace them rapidly and still maintain production levels. And so we absolutely live and die by those concepts even today.
And that's the 4-step training method.
4-step training method.
Can you get into that?
Yeah, sure. So one of the basic things is on-the-job training was one of the core tenets in the 4-step training method. And so people learn in different ways, and you want to hit as many of those different ways as possible. So we tell you about what you're going to be doing, tell you about the process you're going to learn. We immediately go from telling you in kind of like this environment, not non-production environment, to walk you straight into the production environment and say, let me tell you a second time as I show you. Third step is step up here. Let me hand you the tools. I want you to get the feel. I want you to feel the temperature. I want you to hear the noises. This is what this is really like. Now, you saw what I did. Let me walk you through as you go through all the steps, and then let us critique and coach you until we get you to do that perfectly. And so then we follow up the 4-step training method after several days of training you on a position with a coach. Then we add the educational materials that most people's accustomed to. We see a lot of today where people hire people, and the first thing they do is say, here, I've got this training video I want you to go through. Here, I want you to read this material.
Take this test.
Take this test. We realize that's like saying, I know you don't speak Greek. I've got all this Greek written material here. Go through this material written in Greek and then go up here and do this job.
Yeah.
And so the 4-step training method and on-the-job training says, this is what it's really like. Here's the environment. We're going to walk with you through this whole process. You have some understanding now of what's going on. Now let's go back and show you the training material and the training videos. And what we found is that it's twice as effective, twice as sticky. The material that you actually expose them to after on-the-job training sticks with them and remains. And then we make a commitment to everybody that comes to work at PALS. We will absolutely guarantee that if you're here, when you take a test on this position, you will make 100. There's no doubt about it. And because our goal is 100% on everything that we train. You know, and the only passing score is 100. If you 99 is failing at PALS. And so we see a lot of companies that say, well, if you make 90 on this test, it's a real high standard. 90 is passing, 89 is failing. So what are you really saying? You're saying, oh, we're happy and are baking in a 10% failure rate.
Yeah. Now, is this mindset something you always had, or is this a byproduct of the Malcolm
Baldrige?
Baldrige, thank you very much. School of thought. It's kind of both. McDonald's had real high standards where I worked at corporate McDonald's about getting it right. And the most successful people, if you were kind of wanting to follow on somebody's trajectory, you saw these were the people that always made 100 on the test and retained the information. So that, you know, I kind of leaned into that to begin with. But then as we used the Baldrige criteria and looking, and it was asking questions about people development. So one of the underlying, again, like I said, it's not prescriptive, but as they asked the questions, one of the underlying tenets that kind of came out to us was, well, why would we build failure in? Why not set the standard to 100% and make it easy? So in making 100%, we even teach you how to cheat on the test. Because what we'll do is we'll set you down and say, now we're going to go through this material. Now here's the operations manual, and I'm going to set it right here behind you. And the section you're on starts on page 67. Now take this test, because what I really want and what we really need is somebody that has the wherewithal, gumption, and tenacity to say, if I forgot a fact, let me look it up. Yeah. And I mentioned before we hit record today that I went to school, I became a commercial pilot, and they taught you, like, you don't have to know the answer, but you have to know where to find the answer.
That's right.
And as long as you know where to find the answer, I mean, the Far Aim, the book that you have that with all the regulations and stuff, it's a thick book. Mm-hmm. If you can memorize everything in that book, you're a special individual. And there's probably 0.01% of the people, or probably fewer, 0.001% of people can probably do that, right?
Right.
But if you know where to go to get the answer, that's just as effective.
That's right.
You know, so creating that culture of, like, you don't need to know everything, but you need to know where to find the answer.
No,
but as long as you meet the standard,
you need to know where to go, and you have the will to go and actually look
to meet the standard.
To meet the standard. So two things. Where is the answer? I have the will to get the answer. I want the right result.
Yeah. So we kind of got into, you know, when you reach out to the Malcolm Baldrige. Am I saying it right? I don't know why I'm struggling with this.
Yeah. No, Malcolm Baldrige. Yeah. You could just call it the Baldrige Award.
The Baldrige Award. Thank you very much. So you discovered this. Did you start? Is this when you started working with David McClaskey? Right in the 80s, or was this later?
This was later.
Sorry, so 90s.
David McClaskey and I became aware of each other in probably 2000.
Okay.
So as we had started using the Baldrige criteria and we're making improvements at PALS, we had a lot of local businesses would just reach out to us and say, boy, I see things really changing at PALS, and I've got a shoe store, or I've got a restaurant, or I've got a gas station. Well, what could we learn from what you're doing? And so we thought about those questions for a while, and so we went to the local Chamber of Commerce and said, we're going to start opening up once a month for a 2-hour session called a benchmarking session, and we're just going to openly share what we're doing and changing and learning with anybody that wants to come, free of charge.
Anybody in the community.
Anybody in the community. Just let them know about that. And so the chamber made an announcement for us through the chamber members. And so, I thought, well, we may get a dozen people. We could handle 40 people in the facility that we had.
100 show up?
Well, no, we 'cause you had to have a reservation to come, but the seats were gone within 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
And that was the first time. So we thought, well, okay, that's an anomaly. We were through this. Next month there'll be 10 people here, then there'll be 3 people here, and then we'll be done with this. It was sold out. Again, there wasn't a price tag on it, but the seats were all taken every month. And so then it expanded, so we were taking people from the surrounding cities and things. And during that time, I got requests to share with other organizations what's going on. So David was a member of the National Society for Quality, ASQ, and the ASQ had asked me to come give a talk. And so I gave a talk and did a Q&A at the end, and there was this one guy in the back that just kept asking me these pointed, deep dive questions. And I found it fun, and we had a real good exchange. And so after that, he came up and introduced himself. Said, I'm David McClaskey, and kind of what you say you're doing at PALS resonates with what we're doing at Eastman Chemical Company. And I'm with, and I'm a member of the American Society for Quality.
Can you remember the questions he was asking you?
Oh, just that's been a long time ago. I can't remember exactly.
25
but
years ago.
It was basically how do you operationalize that? How do you operate? How are you using, like the comment you made about the 4-step training method? Well, why is that important? Why is on-the-job training so important to y'all? What about the way you all look at data? That's how we say you should look at it at the American Society of Quality. How did you get to this point that you believed in that? And so it was those types of questions and the underlying, kind of the question behind the question situation that he was asking and looking for those deep dives. And so we just started talking, and then we decided that we were going to apply for the Baldrige Award.
And this is in the mid to early 2000s.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Well, how many locations did you get to at this point since the 90s?
At that point, we were at 12 locations.
12. So you doubled in size. So you're about doubling every 10 years.
Yeah.
That's like your rate of growth at this
that's
point.
right.
Yeah. So you're at 12 locations. This is just through this process of, again, looking at you started just doing the work.
Doing
right?
the work.
And then it starts compounding. The work was, the new habits were measuring data, creating standards and processes, and educating and training staff.
That's correct.
And then if you just focus on these things and doing the work, it compounds.
Doubling
Doubling every 10 years.
That's right.
You're at 12 locations in the early 2000s. One question before you go beyond this. Why were you doing this training? You said you just started doing this free training every month, was it?
Yeah, every month.
What was the incentive?
And we call them benchmarking sessions.
Yeah. But why were you doing
and the idea was we want to make the communities that we're in better. Why not?
What's the incentive?
Well, the better, the stronger the community is, the better these other businesses doing, the more people they employ, the more money in the marketplace, and workers in the marketplace, the more they're going to eat out. And we used to joke at the time, we want to make this such a great community and have a situation to where everybody's fully employed, that this is the place that everybody in the world wants to look for performance excellence. Come to Northeast Tennessee. And another thing that you'll notice in Northeast Tennessee, nobody has to have a kitchen at home because everybody eats out 100% of the time.
Can you tell that I'm glowing on the inside right now? Can you feel the radiation?
I can see the joy in your face.
And my mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform, to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. And what you just explained is my vision, man. Like, if we can get restaurant owners across the country to change their community by doing exactly what you just spelled out for us about lifting up the community, about we're not in the business of service or creating food. We're in the manufacturing business, and we're in the business of growing people, educating people, lifting up people. When you lift up the people that work for you, the next step, it ripples out to your community, and your community gets better. And there is no better industry position than the restaurant industry to change things. And here's the thing, it has to come from the inside out. We can't point our finger and say somebody has to do something about this. And I think society's guilty of that right now. Somebody has to do something about this. Why isn't the government doing anything about this? Screw you. Do something about it. Take control. Take initiative. Be a part of the change. And what you did, just sharing that information, lifting your community up, is how we're going to do it, man. Like, I'm stoked.
Well, that's right. And then as we followed our process to share, because we were wanting to build up the community, we were wanting people to thrive. The biggest learning that we have taken away from this is because we would have people challenge, why do you spill your guts, open up and tell everything that you're doing for success? And it was because it ramped up our level of success.
How?
Because the more we shared, the world's full of smart people. And as you share with those smart people, they think and ask questions. And what they were doing was actually polishing us. They would ask us such deep dive questions, we'd go, why is that working good for us? Why do we do that?
Or maybe they saw it from a different perspective. Maybe they had a better solution.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they were sharing their ideas. And so what we found out was that the teacher always learns more than the student. Because you're going through the material for the umpteenth time and you're understanding it a little deeper. And now you're getting the student's perspective to understand it even better. And so the more we shared, the more rapidly we improved.
Yeah. So a couple of things, I've kind of identified 1 to 3 is there's different points of evolution for restaurateurs. There seems to be this pattern. 1 to 3 is there's that, the first point of evolution is opening your first restaurant, right? And then things start to change between when you get to that third, trying to go to your fourth location. And then there's a 4 to 10. When you get to that 10 location, things start to change again in terms of how you do business. So now at this point, you're at 12 locations. How is your business? You're building layers, right? You're also breaking down old systems and creating new systems to be able to or maybe just layers of those additional systems above the frontline systems, right?
Right.
So how is your organization continuing to grow at this point?
Well, we were involving. We were creating relationships with people to help with supply chain management. We were creating deeper relationships with marketing. How could we be more professional marketers? We got better, more effective at how we were building and structuring our training materials. We got better at how do you actually transfer knowledge better. We became big believers in flashcards as one of our core training tools.
Okay. So you at 12 locations, you started focusing on doing marketing better. You started doing focusing on doing training better. You started using things like flashcards. You also in the late 90s started to recognize that it's about creating opportunity for others, and we're only going to open a new location when we have a leader, a culture carrier, somebody to go and be the leader of that location. How did that start changing the rate at which you scaled? Did it speed things up or slow things down?
It initially slowed things down. So, because what we had to do was say, how do we make sure that those leaders have the right amount of training? And what we came up with was that to get all the cultural pieces we want transferred, that we needed a minimum of a 4-year focused cycle to bring that individual up to speed.
Okay.
So before we were bringing in, as small as we were, of course, we were bringing in a lot of outside people. We weren't big enough to totally create from within all the leaders that we needed for growth. Yeah, and we might do, we'll do 9 months. We'll do 15 months of training. Here you go, open a location. Well, we found out, no, it's a lot more effective if we do 48 months. But then once we got that first initial cycling through us, about 2 cycles through, then you had the people in the pipeline, which we call the Leadership Development Pipeline, LDP. So we'd have enough people in LDP to go back to the original growth rates.
Okay. So my mind. There's so many questions to ask you, man. Like, you're giving us such great knowledge, right? So I guess at this point, you mentioned that you started doing these trainings. You started attracting onto yourself new people. In the mid 2000s, you find this guy David McClaskey. You're already doing the Malcolm Baldrige standards and all this stuff. Was he was doing that in a different a chemical company, Eastern Chemical Company?
Eastman Chemical
So
Company.
you guys were talking the same language.
Correct.
And when did he start coming into your restaurant and start working with you? And why did you recruit him?
What up, unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing and recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Well, it was kind of a mutual vision. We sat down to talk, and he told me his vision for growing, sharing knowledge with the community and the greater world, actually. McClaskey shared information all over the world. And we just talked and said, this kind of lines up. And we're on this journey to be recognized as a winner of the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. But one of the expectations of that Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award is that you'll share your information with people that want to come, especially and the big companies from around the world generally will come to a winner and do these sessions, with these sharing sessions. And we were lean, trying to say, well, if we win, how do we handle that? And so between that need at PALS and belief that we were actually going to win, the fact that we at PALS and David McClaskey was but wanting to make the world a better place, to help people thrive, we decided let's join forces. And we joined forces and created the PALS Business Excellence Institute. And we ran that up until January of 2020 when COVID-19 came out.
Okay, so you won the award in what year?
We won the award in 2001.
Okay, so like right after, this is before or after?
This was before.
So this is early.
So we're wanting to get be ahead of the game.
Yeah. So you knew, like, you manifested that. Like, we're gonna win, so we might as well get this organization started.
Get this started with the sharing, and so then David took over as the CEO of that training operation, and he brought a lot of skills and talents to the table to continue. So we stopped the benchmarking sessions, turned it over into this classroom setting, and then we expanded from just regional. By that time it was regional people could come to the benchmarking sessions, to anybody could come to the benchmarking sessions from around the world. And so we had people from South Africa, France, England, South America, Canada, Japan. Lots of people were coming and listening to our story. And that started, again, before we actually won the Baldrige Award, because there was something going on. And then after we won the Baldrige Award, it greatly expanded.
Got it. And you created the PALS Excellence Institute,
right?
Which is now the McClaskey Excellence Institute.
Correct.
What were the things you were teaching? What was how did you structure that educational element?
Basically it was structured around the Baldrige criteria. So you looked at an overview of the business, then what were your leadership systems? What was your strategic planning process? What kind of strategic plans is it producing for you? How do you manage and drill in on your customer focus? What is your core business processes? What is your human development processes? And ultimately, what are the results? Do the results actually prove that any of the stuff that you're doing and say that you're doing works?
So, to summarize, it focuses on the PALS Institute, or the PALS Excellence Institute, focused on leadership, strategic planning process, management, drilling down on customer and how it focus on the customer, core business processes, and human development processes.
That's right.
And then actually the results, the actual impact these things are
The
making.
actual impact.
So when people would sign up for Palace Excellence, would this be like a one-day event or multiple days? Would you cover all these things?
Cover all the things. It started off as a long one-day event. It quickly morphed into a 2-day event.
Okay.
So it took 2 days to cover all the information. And then as part of the process, because to help us with the continued development and learning at PALS, and the teacher learning more than the students, is besides teaching the classes, I would go in and do the Q&A each day and say, here we're showing you in the classroom, we're telling you, take as much time and go as deep as you want, challenge us as much as you want. I'll answer any question that you throw at us. Then we're going to, after you've had the morning class, you've had a Q&A with me, let's put you in a van, let's go to the restaurant, and now actually watch it happen inside production.
Can I guess what would happen after that? It would, by any chance, is it show the position, how it works, get and then coach the position?
Coach the position.
By any chance, maybe repeat until, is it the 4-step training method?
That's it.
Applied right here?
Applied right there.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you talk about it, you explain it, and then you would do the Q&A, and then you would show them how it works at the PALS, and then
Right.
would you continue to work with them thereafter?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we would challenge them, and eventually got to where they would build an action plan, and then we would follow up and challenge them, how you doing on your action plan?
Yeah.
This is week 6 after the course. Where are you at? What's your hard data?
So is this really kind of where you're looking at the 4 pillars of excellence?
Yes.
And what are those 4 pillars?
You have quality thinking, quality focus, quality of process, and quality of people.
Got it. So what do you mean by, and I got this out of David McClaskey, but
Right.
I'm curious. I want to hear like your thoughts going through those thinking, focus, process people.
All right. Well, you have to have a certain mindset. So the quality thinking is, how do you think about it? Train to 100%. So some of these standards that you need to kind of believe in and set in place. Work yourself into a new way of thinking. Realize that perfection is a great goal that'll get you to excellence. So we don't believe that there's such thing as anything being 100% perfect 100% of the time, but you can get awful close. And the closer you get, the better it is. Quality focus is, are you focused on the right things? Are you focused on the things that really are important to the core of the business, the core of your customer base, the thing that makes you you? And are you drilling in and not getting so much out on the table that you're confused? If you look at the world today, and especially in business models, we think there's a complexity crisis. So this focusing in on just the core, most effective pieces, and then think of it at a deep level that helps you on really focusing in on the quality. Then make sure that you have really robust designs of process, that you're detailed and there's no wishy-washiness about it. It's not, put a piece of cheese on the cheeseburger. It's the cheese on the cheeseburger goes on the meat patty because it's going to melt. It needs to be perfectly centered on the meat patty so that the melt's exactly right. It's all those little details. It's down to, how much lettuce goes on, the fact that there can't be a brown spot in any of the lettuce. Or if you put on a tomato slice, that you have to make sure that there's jelly in the tomato slice, that it can't be one of the end pieces of the tomato. And so you're defining out all of that in your process step. And then you get to the people part where you actually view, our view of a general manager at PALS is that you're the president, chairman of the board, CEO of a one restaurant enterprise, and we're here to support you and help you be the best president, CEO, chairman of the board that you can possibly be. And by taking employees, as we train them, we want to put employees in a state of self-control. We've trained you to the level you know what's right. You're committed to doing what's right. If you are unsure about something, where to go look up the information, and you're fully committed to the fact that you're going to align with the mission at Pals is to delight customers in a way that creates loyalty, and you're going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, and you're not going to pass off an inferior product to anybody, and that you think about customers with a big C. Customers with a big C. So if you go to Pals and you ask, who's your customer? Well, if you're the bagger, you'll say, well, my customer is the handout person at the window and ultimately the customer. But if you go to the order taker will say, my first customer is I have to call everything out in Pals speak because my customers are the production team, and I have to make sure I set them up to succeed and hand off to the ultimate customer, the paying customer, the right product. And so we have a whole sequencing of customers, and your job is to delight customers, all customers, even your internal customers, in a way that creates loyalty.
I love this, man. This is great stuff. And, loved what I got from David McClaskey. And if you're interested in learning more about these 4 pillars of excellence, then he's still teaching these pillars.
He absolutely is.
I think he's doing it every 2 months.
Yes.
Every 2 months. And he is partnering with Restaurant Unstoppable. He's going to help out. The more I spread the word about the work he's doing, the more he's going to support this mission to help support me on the road so I can find more people like you, and it all comes back around. So if you're interested in learning more, I think it's restaurantunstoppable.com/David McClaskey, and you will be able to find links to sign up for his upcoming events. And thank you for supporting the podcast if you use my links. Okay, so once David comes on board and you guys partner up and you partner with him, how does Pals evolve? Today you're at 31 locations. So this is 20 years later. You've continued to kind of scale, right? As you're growing to where you are today, between this point in your journey where we are, like 2001-ish, where you're teaching all this stuff and you develop this teaching, how have you evolved? Like, how are you better today? What have your challenges over the past 20 years been?
Over the past 20 years, if one of the things that we would do for some small groups that come in is we'd take and do a tour of stores by store number and say, let us physically show you how we've evolved.
Okay.
Here's what we learned. Here's how we had to change the physical plant. Here's what we learned, and it forced a change in the physical plant. So we changed the whole production flow. The fact that the more we got aligned with how tightly we are bound to being a manufacturer, we've set up the building to where products comes in the back door. It goes down the right-hand travel path if it needs back of the house processing. It goes down the left hand if it can go straight out into the production area. Comes together at a confluence point right before it goes out on the front line, straight out to the customer. So there's no crossover, no backups in production. We've continued to evolve in how much effort we put into training. We've really developed a really robust coaching model. We're much more effective coachers today than we've ever been, and that has evolved as the 2000s have gone along. The power of having positive reinforcement. Hey, I saw you do that right. You were right on standards. You did X, Y, Z exactly right. Thank you. That positive reinforcement to get them more tightly bound to doing it correctly. And then, I noticed we're off base here on this. Let me help you get that fixed. And now thank you for fixing that. And so continue to do that. We've learned and grown in equipment changes.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Since 1956. So, I mean, you guys just eclipsed. You're about to go into what, like close to 100 or 70 years in business?
70 years, that's right.
And you've scaled have you kept it simple, or are you leveraging technology, or do you think that that's complicating things? Is that part of that crisis you're talking about?
We leverage technology. We're a very technologically based company, more so than what most people think. We have a total ERP system completely designed.
What was that?
ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning.
Okay.
So it integrates scheduling, purchasing, complaint handling.
What are you using?
It's a proprietary system.
All
it's called
in-house.
All in-house, PALS DataNet.
Okay.
System that handles everything. And it's been That's been highly effective for us, and we use all sorts of tools to help us with the recruitment of employees.
So you have your ERP, your enterprise resource planning, and can you just go through like what is, like you said, scheduling? Like what are all the elements that are comprised of that?
Okay, well, it looks at product movement every day. It looks at our sales information. It handles a great deal of our result data collection. It produces charts and graphs that have all of the elements that we talked about earlier: upper and lower control limits, goals, best known benchmarks, everything done in a trailing 12-month or trailing 12-month average basis. It tracks and handles complaints. Well, it doesn't handle complaints, but it tracks complaints and how we handle complaints. Which, by the way, if anybody touches base with PALs about a complaint, especially if they use a digital means, they come to me exclusively, and then I decide who in the company is best suited to handle the complaint. So we do that all. It sets and connects with our supply chain. It does purchase orders for us. So about anything you can think of that needs to be done is handled within our ERP system, the PALS DataNet system.
Got it. I mean, and is it POS too? Is it incorporate, or is that something else?
No, the POS is integrated proprietary programming.
Yeah. So when we talk about this at Restaurant Unstoppable, what I like to call it is an enterprise solution. So you're calling it an enterprise resource planning.
Right.
But I think today the cool thing, you can be a 2-unit operator, and as technology progresses, you can get an enterprise solution. I actually recommend if you're opening a restaurant with the intention to scale, and you're going to raise $2 million to just get open, like budget in into your pro forma, getting an enterprise solution from day one. Because if you start that from day one, and you have your systems, your inventory, your purchasing, your costing, your labor allotment, your projected versus actual cost of goods, like like getting all these things from day one, so you can, to your point, get the data and to be able to track and see how this work you're doing is moving the needle. Like getting that from day one is so critical. And if you're a 2-unit operator, trying to do all this in a plane that's in the air flying. Like you're going to be working, you think working a 60-hour week is rough? Well, get ready to do a couple 80-hour weeks until you get that going, because it's going to have to happen at the end of the day.
Right.
Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Today's world.
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. I am partnering with Restaurant Systems Pro. I don't know if have you heard of Restaurant Systems
Yes,
Pro?
I have.
Do you have any thoughts on Restaurant Systems Pro?
Well, we think it's a good system.
Yeah. There's also Restaurant 365 that's out there that does it. I think Restaurant Systems Pro is way more, I like the smaller organizations, if I'm being honest. But I think it's more of a white glove experience. There's more community around it. When you start getting into the R365s, you're just a number. Yeah. Like they're just trying to get the sale and they move on to the next person. That's my personal opinion. I think we also could be better about fragmenting these big giant companies at the top and like spreading the wealth out, and like not making giant conglomerates that control all the restaurant systems in the industry. That's probably not the best thing. Do you have thoughts on that?
I don't really have thoughts on that, but,
okay.
but our leaning would be against that, because we refuse to do, we don't do software as a service, period.
You don't do software as a service.
Don't do software.
Why is that?
Because that's technology wanting to eat into the profitability of our restaurants, and as we grow our profits, they want to guarantee that their profits grow.
Okay, so
we own all of our technology outright.
But do you think you're in a privileged position to be able to do that because of the scale you've had, or can other people do this?
Other people do this. We've been in this position for almost 30 years. So
okay.
When we were much smaller, we made the decision that we were not going to do software as a service. We were absolutely going to own and control our own digital destiny.
So what do we need to know in order to follow in your footsteps?
Basically just focus on what's the most critical pieces. Start small. We partnered with a local company at the time, Silver Creek Technologies, and they were a prime partner with Microsoft, which opened up a lot of technology and built the systems for us, and we structured it on the front end where everything that we developed together, we owned.
So what is the benefit to this approach? Are the benefits, obviously you own the assets.
On the assets. The main thing is we can absolutely customize it to exactly what we need. When we look at everybody else's systems, so we're not blind to the fact that the world's full of smart people. So maybe somebody's creating a better system. So we're always challenging, saying, should we go out and buy another system besides what we've created? We found nobody that's given us all of what that would give us all of what we need within their package, because everybody, from the smallest to the largest, are saying, this is what we want to sell and this is what we know. And at PALS, we say, well, but we know absolutely that we have to have this information in this format is what's driving some of our results. And you all are not willing to give it to us. So, well, we'll stick with our own program.
They're getting their cut too.
That's right.
Yeah. And in the world we live in, I mean, to your point, like overcomplicating, we're in a crisis right now. What's it called? The complex crisis, or
a complexity of a crisis of complexity.
Yeah. And when all those different parts, those players are pulling at your, adding onto your operational expense costs.
That's right.
It starts, it just gets it's the app trap. And I think a part of the solution to that app trap is going to an enterprise solution. But if you are somebody who wants, I think tackling that problem is that a challenge? The way do you think everybody can do what you did in terms of like?
I don't think everybody can. I think if you think it through, most people can.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to learn more about how to set that up. What's the name of the company that you're working with?
Well, the company that we did work with that started was Silver Creek Technologies.
Silver Creek, and they're not.
They have actually sold out and gone out of business.
Okay.
Because all the people reached retirement age, and currently we use IntelliThought, which is based here in Kingsport, Tennessee.
IntelliThought.
IntelliThought. IntelliThought.
IntelliThought. All right. I would love to maybe follow up with them and try to learn more about this approach, because this is fascinating to me.
Yeah. So the owner there is Matthew Cleek.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. Anything we haven't discussed up to this point is in terms of where you are today and how you've evolved in the most recent years. What haven't we discussed that we should be discussing?
I think you've covered
a lot, man.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. So let me ask you this. If my mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry, where is the industry today and where do we need to go?
Well, our thought process on it is we truly believe within the restaurant industry that the restaurant industry is definitely in a complexity crisis.
What do you give me? We discussed what that. But you mean by
this brought me to the table and made me known and made me recognized where we're at. One unit in the community and everything. Now that I'm here, I'm feeling pressure to add more product, add more services. Things we don't do at PALS. We don't have to do third-party delivery because they're going to screw up the quality. Why should I pay somebody and destroy my profit margin for them to make a bad impression with the customer?
Right.
We maintain a very limited menu. So our commitment is if we came up with a world-class, we just absolutely have to add this item to the menu. We'll only do it by removing an item that already exists off the menu. We're not going to expand the menu any further as far as the number of items, because the further you expand the menu, you go from, I can focus on these few things and be great. Now I've expanded it and I've got a larger number of things to focus on and I'm so-so. Well, sales isn't growing the way they used to grow, so let's expand more, and it's just a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So I think that if they really thought through the complexity crisis and the fact that they're actually managing themselves into a corner that it's going to be hard to get out of.
Right. So you're talking at a per operation, per unit level, there's a complexity crisis. Do you think that there's a greater complexity? Is this idea of complexity reach further? Is it a bigger issue where the society is more complex than it needs to be? Or is it just in the per unit location?
No, I think society as a whole, especially just in choices and selection, because everybody's wanting to come to the game. So go to a grocery store, and walk down the breakfast cereal aisle, and all I want is cornflakes, you know, or some of the tried and true brands, and you have so many selections. They've put so much complexity and noise into the system, you can't find what worked. And I don't think the categories are growing that much. They're just continuing to divide the pieces smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller all the time. And so I think that you can scale that and look at it at any level. There's just this major complexity crisis going on at basically any level you want to think about.
What is the root cause of that complexity crisis?
I think it boils down to two things. One's the fact that, you know, I'm going in business and I want a piece of the pie, so I've got to throw in. So me too. Mm-hmm. Well, here's a market. Let's do me too. And then I think the other part of the complexity crisis is back to the fact of what I was saying. If I was good at this much, I've got to be better at a whole lot more, or that the new things always, if I throw something new in there, it's got to be better than the old thing. And
right.
and I definitely do not believe that's the case.
I think that the complexity crisis manifests in scaling too. I think people think that in order to what is growth? I think when people think of growth, they think of doing what you're already doing more. But I think when you think of growth, and when the best people think of growth, they think of what am I already doing? How do I do it better?
Right.
How do I take what I'm already doing and how do I put more energy into doing what I'm already doing better? And one thing that I wanted to bring into today's conversation, 31 locations. What's the footprint? How many, like what between the two most extreme geographic PALS locations, how much distance is between those two locations?
From our central office point, there's 75 miles in either direction catches us. So if you said, you know, what's the whole
radius
or
diameter?
So it'd be diameter of the circle would be about 150 miles from the one extreme to the other extreme.
Yeah. So 150 miles, 31 locations.
Right.
Are you familiar with P. Terry's in Austin, Texas?
Yes.
Yeah. I've had Patrick Terry on the show twice now. And what I see a similar thing going on, like what he's done in Austin. I mean, I should say what you've done in Tennessee, he's done in Austin because you guys were around longer, right? And I do think that this is a part of the future that I want to see, is by taking what you were doing and putting, instead of like the complexity of going out and out and out, how do we put all this energy into doing a few things really well? And then how do we take that energy into making our community a better community, right?
Making the community a better community and being committed and owning the market that you're committed to. You know?
Why is that a better approach than going coast to coast?
Well, I think at the heart of the restaurant industry and hospitality is the human connection. And if you focus on a region, and it's a reasonable region that you can get to, if a store needs anything, any assistance, my goal is to serve the stores the best way possible. I can get in a car and within an hour or so, be at any location and support it, and the customers can see us. And that's why I answer all the emails that come in. So it's that personal touch that says, I believe in the community. And then if you have that personal touch with the community, it makes you have more empathy for the community and a bigger desire to see that community succeed and thrive.
Yeah.
And to give back to.
Yeah. What is your vision for PALS going forward?
A vision for PALS is to continue what we're doing. We're small, conservative. We don't borrow money. We pay cash as we go. We have great results. Our focus is on developing people internally and externally, and to grow the markets. And then we're going to grow in concentric circles. So our current concentric circles is 75 miles in any direct. The radius is 75 miles from the central office point. We're looking at and challenge ourselves, should we step out to go 125 miles and pick up the Knoxville market? But if we do, if you look at that 125 miles as a circle, that brings in a lot of other markets. We'd have to completely dominate those markets and then decide what's the next circle to go out. And can we hold that? And then it would put us into a decision-making. Have we gotten to a point where we have to have another command hub within these
right
concentric circles to make everything work the same way?
Do you think as you achieve reach, you are sacrificing impact?
I think that that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to face. I don't think that we've have that situation yet.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed today's conversation, man.
Well, I have to.
Yeah, thank you so much. A couple questions before we say goodbye. Somebody asked all my guests, what is one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that's truly uncommon and makes you unstoppable?
The single thing that makes us unstoppable is our absolute dedication and commitment to helping everybody that's within our organization thrive and to achieve the best them that they can achieve within our organization.
I love it. The mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the industry. How have you personally transformed? How are you a better man today than the man you were when you got started in this industry?
Well, I think that the thing that's made the biggest difference in my life is I've learned more and more how to listen to others and help them champion their ideas and to showcase those individuals and what they're doing. So we keep kind of a running record of improvement changes at PALS, and it's a massive list. And if you want to segregate out which ones came from Thom, it's such a small speck that the number. All the really great changes in the organization came from individuals that we were working with and helping them to see and to think and to say, how can I benefit this organization? How can I make sure my ideas are heard, and how can I apply those? And then we capture those and make heroes out of them for changing the organization.
Yeah. So the last question before we wrap it up officially, and if you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. Aliens are coming down and they're abducting you. You're never coming back to this world, but you can leave 3 pieces of wisdom behind. They're going to forget you, your work, your restaurants, but these 3 pieces of wisdom you're going to leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. What are those 3 pieces of wisdom?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I
That is a
don't.
tough one.
Yeah, I'd have to think on that one.
You have to think on it.
Yeah, if you're gonna give me time to prep for anyone, that's the one you should have gave me time.
Well,
to prep.
I think some big lessons I can just pull from today's conversation, right? It's not about you; it's about everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating opportunity for other people and lifting up other people. It's about making an impact in your community, right?
Right.
And it's about not about how much success can you have, but how much can you use your success to make an impact in your community. Is that safe? And give me one more from today's conversation that you need to leave. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I think one of the wisdoms is that you need to be a servant leader.
Yeah. You
need to be fully committed to a goal and a belief bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
I think the other 2 pieces is that one is live your life as the example of what you want everybody else to be. You have to be in the own position 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can't turn it on when you come to work. You have to be an original, authentic in how you act and function on a daily basis in how you lead. And I guess I guess that's the only ones I can think of.
So be a servant leader and live your life like you want others to lead theirs.
I'll tell you one other one that and this is actually something I say a lot, so I don't know why it took me so long to kind of come to it. But I've had people in the past talk about levels of frustration, and they go, I'm working as hard as I can here. I'm telling my team members, I've told them 24 times how to do this, and I still have people not committed and aligned to it. And I actually believe that if you're fully committed as a leader, you need to have a conversation and be committed to understanding that when you've shared with somebody on your team 2,000 times what the standard is, you're just beginning to get to the point where they're hearing you.
Yep.
And so that you can't lose the amount of energy or your enthusiasm in going over what the standards and the culture is.
Yep. That's what Danny Myers talks about with the constant gentle pressure.
Right.
It's never going to end. As soon as if you accept today that you will be a broken record, and that's what that that pressure of your excellence, of your standards, has to be constant.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And of course we think that's a great team. So they twice had people from Union Square Hospitality Group come to courses.
Oh, really?
Here.
I love that.
So it's great people. We love those guys.
Tom, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. I can't do what I do without people like you taking the time to get vulnerable, to be generous, to be generous with your time, to be generous with your knowledge. This last question is how I find all my future guests. So who do you respect and admire in the industry? If this person was a guest on my podcast, you would absolutely tune in. You want to hear what they have to say. And just somebody I need to make an example of.
Well, let me think about that and get back to you.
I'll follow up.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun, man.
Thank you.
And how can we follow up? If we want to follow you, if we want to connect, if we want to come work for you, what's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect with me is via email, which is tom@pilesweb.com.
Beautiful.
Or you can call me direct on my cell phone, 423-557-8755.
Tom, again, thank you so much for everything. I can't do what I do without people like you. There is no questioning. You are unstoppable.
Thank you.
Cheers.